Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Good morning, beautiful friend. It's Dr. Lucy here, joining you again on another Tuesday, and with me in the studio, well, not really in the studio, but it sounds sort of posh to say, is my gorgeous friend and colleague, Dr. Mary. Hello, Dr. Mary. How are you this morning?
Good, nice and warm, feeling happy about summer. Busy with summer, but happy. And I think we should call it the studio.
Well, you are right in the thick of summer, Christmas celebration, pantomimes, concerts, Kris Kringle, teacher presents, all of that.
And my daughter's still lamenting the fact that we haven't got a Christmas tree, even though I did low-grade promise we'd have it up by the 1st of December. That just hasn't happened. Not helped by the fact that she wants to get a really big one that won't fit in my car, and just the added layers of borrowing a ute, my friend's ute, to go and get it means that it might not happen until January. At this rate, I'm not too sure.
Well, it'll be ready for Christmas 2025.
That's it. Yeah,
it's an interesting. That's an interesting example, though, isn't it? Of sometimes when we make the thing we want to do a bit too hard,
totally,
a bit too big in your case, it doesn't get done.
That's true. It's just there's too many.
Whereas if it was a smaller tree, so if we shrunk,
totally, it could fit in the boot of like my little Nissan, it would have been all right. I really was campaigning for a plastic one that we could get in a box from Kmart, but no, my little spirit of Christmas is not up for that. So it's okay. She has to wait.
Well, maybe a compromise between the plastic and the, 7-foot gigantic tree could be.
Yep,
the smaller, doable, shrink the change, make the steps easy.
I tried that a couple of times, but the small trees are really popular and they go really fast. So if you, at the end of the day, school run, pop into, to the garden shop or to the Christmas tree shop, they're all gone. They've only got the enormous ones that no one can fit in their cars. Yeah. So it's okay. Sorry, yes. I'll get there. This does not need to be a podcast about my Christmas tree.
No, but it is recognising that, everyone has a struggle with something.
That's right.
Indeed. So this, as many of you know, we are doing a series on supplements, and we have another supplement to discuss today, which, again, close to your heart, Dr. Mary, but a supplement that some of you may have heard about, called Inositol, often sold as myo-inositol or chiro-inositol, and we're going to be talking all about the pros, the cons, the who's, the pros, the cons, the fors, the against, and, what our thoughts are at the end of all of this. Yes. So, Mez, you being the biochemist and the woman with PCOS, let's talk about inositol.
Yeah, so inositol is a supplement that you can buy, and it's advertised as a weight loss supplement, and it's used to treat various aspects of polycystic ovarian syndrome as well. It's also often referred to as vitamin B8, but it's not really a vitamin because we make it ourselves. So inositol, it's not really a vitamin, it's a type of sugar. It's a type of sugar that we make with lots of important functions in our body.
Oh, aren't sugars bad though?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Some are extremely important, and this sugar actually has a role in cell signaling, and it's so important that we make it, and our bodies make inositol. Almost all of our organs are involved in making inositol. Different types of inositol play a different role in our bodies, and it's absolutely essential. So it's an alcohol sugar that's essential for cell signaling, for fat metabolism, for how our body uses glucose and what we do with the glucose, and it's involved in the production of molecules that help our cells respond to insulin and basically help manage our hormonal balance. So it is essential. And it's so essential that we can get it from our diet. We absolutely can. It's rich in nuts and seeds and berries. There's a little bit of it in meat as well, but we can also make it. Our body can synthesize it itself. And yeah, so we need it. And there are lots of different types of inositol. There's 9. It has a fabulous word of stereoisomers. I love these words, but we don't use stereoisomer. Basically different shaped types of inositol that do different things in our body's biochemistry. But the 2 main ones are myo-inositol and D-chiro-inositol. So we'll just science out for a little bit more, I think, just to get a kind of a background about this supplement and its potential use. So our body primarily produces the myo-inositol, makes it from sugar, in various tissues, especially the brain, the liver, and the kidneys. Also the ovaries, really important as well. And then we can convert that myo-inositol to the D-chiro-inositol where necessary, and there's various enzymes that are important for this. And interestingly, the myo-inositol and the D-chiro-inositol both affect insulin signaling in different ways. So they have distinct yet complementary roles in maintaining insulin sensitivity. And this might be important if you chose to supplement with this, if this is something you wanted to do. The type of inositol you take can be really important, and possibly taking a combined type might be what is useful. So, yeah, we make it, we need it, and there is evidence that in certain conditions, such as polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is something that I have, the symptoms are pretty much in remission these days, but it has been a really significant, has had a really significant impact on my life, having polycystic ovarian syndrome. I started gaining weight when I was in primary school. By the time I was an adolescent, I had obesity and I had infertility as well. And I managed to get 2 beautiful children despite all of that, but it wasn't necessarily easy. And PCOS has sort of thrown a lot of barriers and difficulties my way. So I am extremely interested in any potential treatments for polycystic ovarian syndrome. This is actually what got me into lifestyle medicine in the first place. It is a fantastic way to help your body heal and get into a beautiful metabolic balance. But I love this, Lucy, just off air before you said that, we don't want to get stuck in ideology. We don't want to be like, it just has to be lifestyle measures. If you take supplements or taking medication, you're somehow failing, or we don't want to do that at all. We don't want to get stuck into ideology because we want to remain open-minded to all the potential useful tools out there. And look, inositol might be one. I don't actually take it, but I find it interesting, and I think that being empowered with the right information would be good for people out there.
Absolutely. And I'm also interested in the fact that it's a sugar alcohol. So I was just having a look that in some cases people use it as a sweetener. So
yes,
it's not widely, it's not widely commercially used, unlike, say, erythritol, which is also a sugar alcohol, or xylitol, which also
our body makes as well,
sugar
has a role in cell signaling. Yep.
Yeah, and so again, these products, supplements are, in some ways, we seem to have this distinction between supplements and medicines, or supplements and medications, or supplements and drugs. And it's worth recognizing that, just about everything we put in our body has a role somewhere in some cellular process.
Absolutely.
So it's about putting things that are helpful into more of the helpful things into your body and less of the unhelpful things.
Yes, I think that's extremely important. And it kind of makes my brain explode a little bit how in medicine for so long we've been drawing this distinction between food and medicine. So the kilograms of food that you put in your body, well, it doesn't matter what that is, it's just food, it doesn't do anything. But, the milligrams or micrograms of medicine, well, that's the important stuff. That's really potent. But the food that we eat has huge impacts on our biochemistry, huge impacts on our cell signaling, huge impacts on lots of every single part of us. And so do medications and supplements. It's all important. And I like to kind of think of supplements as medications. I treat them with the same level of respect and curiosity and caution, because just because you can easily buy something, online at a supplement website, or you can pick it up from the vitamin aisle at your supermarket, doesn't necessarily make it safe or a good idea. It doesn't mean that it doesn't, but it doesn't mean that it does. So I think that being really deliberate and cautious with the supplements that you take is important for your health.
Absolutely. And as we've spoken about over the last couple of podcasts, the phrase significant, when we're talking about studies and statistical analyses, doesn't necessarily mean clinical effect. So a statistical significance doesn't necessarily convey to a clinical significance. And it's worth remembering that sometimes companies will manipulate that phrase, and they'll go, such and such has causes significant weight loss or causes significant improvement in yada yada. And they're talking about a statistical significance, which is completely different to what, we would
actual
just
meaningful,
significance
going to help
in
my
lay
life
terms.
difference.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes, it is.
Indeed.
You got to look out for these things.
Yeah. And I think what I love, Mia, is that you're also just elucidating again even further, is it really is, it's not this or that. It's not, I get annoyed by, Facebook or Instagram memes where we've talked about this before, where there's people lining up, it's a cartoon. There's people lining up on one side for medications, and there's 50 people in the line, and one person lining up for lifestyle, or no people lining up for lifestyle. And the story that creates is that people who become unwell or people that need medications, that it's their fault and they just didn't try hard enough in lifestyle stuff.
Yes.
And look, honestly, that's a little bit of bullshit.
It totally is. It is. I would call BS on that. You can, absolutely double down on all of your lifestyle factors, which I think you should do regardless if you want good health. People can do that, but still have problems with infertility from PCOS, for example. They can, improve their metabolic health. They can do fantastic things, but still not get to exactly where they need to go. And things like, if we're using PCOS, for example, things like inositol, we'll go through this more in a minute, can be useful. So can metformin, so can ovulation induction, so can laser hair removal, so can the contraceptive pill, so can IVF. It depends on which polycystic ovarian symptoms you want to treat. And all these things can work beautifully hand in hand with lifestyle changes. And if you don't get all the way that you want to be with lifestyle changes, that doesn't make you a failure. It just means you need more tools, and the tools are there, so let's use them. This goes for everything, not just PCOS.
Absolutely.
It goes for obesity. It goes for menopausal symptom management. All of these things. Use all your tools. Use them wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the other thing to sort of note for people is that sometimes using the medication or the supplement or the medical therapy device, such as CPAP, can help you implement then your lifestyle choices or your lifestyle improvements. So we see this all the time. So there'll be people who really, really want to improve their lifestyle. They really want to do some exercise. They really want to improve their nutrition, but they're exhausted because they've got sleep apnea and they're not sleeping properly. Introduce CPAP and suddenly they're sleeping better, and then they can do their lifestyle, then they can change their nutrition, then they can do their walking or whatever it is they want to do. They can lose maybe some weight and, in fact, may not need their CPAP.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you just spent all the time hammering them to do lifestyle and you won't need CPAP, that day will never come for some people. So You're absolutely right around ideology. Like, I think it's really important to note that sometimes people get trapped in ideology. They can't see, they actually close the door to all their options because they're stuck down their one way of doing things.
And I do see this, and I think you have too, with people who are big fans of the carnivore diet, for which we've talked about before. You know, we've got our views are really moderate. It can be a useful tool for some people. It might not be for others. But that is there is this sort of pockets of ideology where people will really want to close the door to absolutely everything else, including plant foods, which, you know, may or may not be helpful. So I think open-mindedness is really essential to have good health in our complex modern daily lives.
Absolutely. And I think you've just elucidated it perfectly. It's not this or that, it's this plus that. And at the end of the day, what we want for everybody, and I think this should be a philosophy of you know, all medical professionals, is that pharmaceuticals are extremely important, but the aim should be the lowest effective dose.
Yeah.
And the lowest effective dose does two things. One, it reduces the risk of side effects and drug interactions for people. And two, it's cheaper. It saves people a lot of money. It saves the government a lot of money. And the way that we can ensure that we achieve that aim of the lowest effective dose is to really look at the lifestyle factors and help people be able to achieve those. So, you know, people don't want, like, there's, again, it's so much judgment around there. If you've got lifestyle factors that could be optimized, but for whatever reason you're not doing them, it's not because people are lazy or that they don't want it enough. There are barriers, and untangling and helping them unravel those barriers is so important. And the barriers can be psychological, they can be environmental, they can be physical. And if we can help people identify and address their barriers, then they are far more likely to make improvements rather than just being shamed into the fact they're not doing their lifestyle stuff.
Absolutely. And my brain went back to my Christmas tree that I haven't put up, and the barriers that exist to that. They are totally overcomable, and perhaps I do need some help to overcome these barriers. But I don't want to trivialise it. These mindset barriers, they really can be broken down, made smaller, overcome, and people can get the support they need to make healthy changes stick and just fit into your busy everyday life. That may or may not include having to get and decorate Christmas trees.
Absolutely. So as far as inositol goes, just to bring it back to that, because that is the topic of our conversation today, it seems that there are a number of studies on it. The benefits seem to be largely at this stage confined to people with PCOS and potentially gestational diabetes. So we're looking therefore at insulin resistance at an ovarian level. I guess it would make sense that those benefits are likely to be transferable through to other causes of insulin resistance or conditions related to insulin resistance, but we don't have a lot of data on that yet.
That's it. Yeah. Yep. There is it is conflicting. There's some data saying that inositol supplementation does help with fat loss, but it's not yet conclusive, I think, is probably where we're at this stage. I would love some more randomized controlled studies to be done to get a little bit more information on this. That would be fantastic. But as of yet, it's still a bit inconclusive. But we could still talk a little bit more about, I guess the risks and benefits, I suppose, so people could have a bit more of an idea about if there's something they wanted to look into more.
Yeah, okay. So benefits, so let's start with the best. The benefits, what have you got for me?
So, enhancing insulin sensitivity, this is particularly in people with PCOS. So it seems that there is evidence suggesting that people with PCOS and metabolic syndrome, so both of those, have difficulty converting from the myo-inositol to the D-chiro-inositol, and that this is one of the mechanisms that actually leads to insulin resistance and hormonal imbalance. So it is thought that supplementing with, both forms of inositol at the right ratios could potentially help restore that balance. And the evidence shows this is more the case in treating polycystic ovarian syndrome than it is in treating overweight and obesity. So, potential benefits is that it can improve fertility and ovulation rates for women with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And there are some studies saying that it does it better, worse, and the same as metformin. So it is still, I think at this stage, it's still a bit inconclusive, but it is certainly interesting to watch. And it can also help reduce androgen levels. So the increased testosterone is something that many women with polycystic ovarian syndrome have, and that can cause symptoms like contribute to infertility as well as hair growth in places we don't want it and acne. And it's also a major contributor to the weight gain. So inositol can help regulate those hormonal levels. Also may help with mood. So inositol has been shown to influence neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, and there's some evidence that it potentially has a supplementary role in treating depression and anxiety, although there's a few cautions around that because possibly some people with bipolar disorder, it might increase their risk of mania, so it's still all a bit new. But so, key benefits, I think, would be the restoration of ovulation and fertility in women with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Inositol can improve ovarian function and help promote regular ovulation. So that, I think, is a pretty important benefit. Low-grade evidence that it can do this, can help lower those androgen levels to an extent. Still unclear how much that actually clinically helps, but it is interesting. And potentially a role in weight loss. And mechanistically, it makes sense because inositol helps us burn fat. It helps the liver break down fatty acids. It helps improve that insulin signaling, helps lower insulin resistance. So all of this could lead to improved fat metabolism and support that weight loss. So the evidence as to what actually happens in the real world with inositol supplementation still a bit unclear. So they're my summary of the benefits.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to always, again, reflect back what happens in the real world. And we have a beautiful example of this with leptin, which is one of our hormones that is good for satiety. And again, leptin only really discovered in the 1990s. So we haven't known about it forever. I certainly didn't learn about it when I went through medical school in the 80s because we didn't know about it. And it's made by our fat cells and tells our brain, well, Lucy's got enough fat stores. You don't need to keep eating. You don't need to keep looking for food. It's good for satiety. So if you know that, you would think, more is better. Obviously, more satiety, great. Except that the studies didn't work. So that didn't translate into real life. And actually what we know is that too much of a good thing, you develop resistance to it. And so this is why mechanistically sometimes things sound so promising, but if they don't translate into the real world, well, they can actually not only not give you the benefit they want, but sometimes give you the opposite of what you're looking for, which is what happens with leptin resistance.
That's it.
So one of the tricky things we have with supplements is that the trials, drug trials, supplement trials, nutrition trials, they're so expensive. They are really, really expensive to run. They're time consuming. There's lots of methodology that needs to be accounted for. And so we don't always have the studies to support what we're looking for. And we may never get those studies either, which is a bit tricky. It
is tricky. So, it is really hard. What do you do with this information? I think we should also just talk about the potential risks as well. Risks
Absolutely.
that we know about. It's generally well tolerated, but gastrointestinal discomfort seems to come up a fair bit in the literature. bloating, nausea, diarrhea. Some people experience that. Some people experience headache and fatigues. And I mentioned before, in rare cases, that worsening of the manic symptoms in people with bipolar disorder, probably just one to be aware of. And then I suppose beyond that, we don't exactly know. There are trials looking at it for treatments or prevention of gestational diabetes in pregnant women, and it seems to be well tolerated without any adverse effects in pregnancy. But I think what you should do with this information then is, this could be potentially something that is helpful, but it's a good idea to have a chat to your doctor and your treating team about it and treat it with respect, I think. Don't sort of pop it with lollies willy-nilly. Treat it with respect and monitor how you go. And it might be that, people need to do their own N=1 scientific experiment that you have to fund yourself and to see if it is helpful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth recognising that two things. One, the side effects for inositol are very similar to the side effects for berberine, very similar to the side effects for metformin. So there's obviously some mechanism in there that is part of its effect. They all produce similar outcomes according to the limited studies we have on berberine and inositol. Metformin, many more studies available. So I wouldn't be taking all three at once.
Yes.
If you're thinking, oh, right, well, I've got PCOS, I can take metformin and inositol and berberine, and that will help me improve my life. May not. But as you said, Mez, you can absolutely, when you're taking a supplement, test and measure. That's how we really should be treating them. So as an example, you could, and again, this is just an example, you could do a fasting insulin level, start one of those three things, and then in 3 months' time, measure your fasting insulin level or measure your HOMA-IR, which is which is a combination. So HOMA-IR is a formula that looks at fasting insulin and fasting glucose and plops it into a formula and gives you a number that gives you your likelihood of insulin resistance. If the number is over 2, you are insulin resistant. Under 2, you're not really. The bigger the number, the worse your insulin resistance, essentially. So it's a pretty good, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good measure of improvement or not improvement. So if you were to take something, take it for 3 months, and then there's no change, well, then stop taking it. You're wasting your money. If there's a change and it's better and you're happy with it, well, then you need to probably keep taking it because it only works while you take it. It's not something you can take for a few months and then stop taking. So, I think there's ways for individuals to measure whether a supplement or even a medication is valuable for them.
That's it. Yep. You have to be your own scientist.
Sometimes. All right, my lovely friends, I think that's enough on inositol. So inositol, I guess, for polycystic ovarian syndrome probably gets a yay for us if that's something that you're wanting to treat. For everyone else, again, be your own scientist and decide whether it's worth it for you. There's certainly some potential. The side effect profile is reasonable, and caveat, of course, with there's not a lot of long-term data.
Yeah. So we're still learning more about this.
Indeed. All right, my lovely friends, I think we'll skedaddle and see you all next week.
See ya.
The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualised medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.